Morning glory and evening grace, America. Good Wednesday to you. I'm in Studio North today. There has been quite a lot of conversation over the last 24 hours. And during my preparation by listening to podcasts from Dan Senor on Call Me Back or the commentary podcasters and others about Donald Trump's speech in Riyadh. And frankly, I did not listen to it the way they listened to it, didn't hear it the way they heard it. I heard it quite simply as a reiteration of what was known as the Powell doctrine forever, named for Colin Powell. If you go to my X account, you'll see that I asked my handy AI assistant to find Powell doctrine, and it spit out the definition, and I put that over on X. And the Powell doctrine is quite, very much in keeping with what Donald Trump said yesterday. I want to remind you what he said yesterday in his speech in Saudi Arabia. Cut number 1.
Before our eyes, a new generation of leaders is transcending the ancient conflicts of tired divisions of the past and forging a future where the Middle East is defined by commerce, not chaos, where it exports technology, not terrorism, and where people of different nations, religions, and creeds are building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. We don't want that. And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop Kabul, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves.
So what President Trump is talking about, obviously, he mentions the neocons, probably Paul Wolfowitz, part of W's first administration and the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. And our intervention in the former was voluntary and the latter was necessary. And at the time that the invasion of Iraq took place, first invasion of Iraq, it was thought necessary because of the belief, widespread, sincerely held, that they had WMD and we couldn't afford that. He went on to say, cut number 2.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, you know, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength. You have to have the strength, otherwise bad things could happen. But hopefully we'll never have to use any of those weapons. Seems to be an awfully big waste of money if you're never going to use them, but hopefully we'll never have to use them because the destructive power of some of those weapons are like nobody's seen before. I believe it is God's job to sit in judgment, my job to defend America, and to promote the fundamental interest of stability, prosperity, and peace. That's what I really want to do.
Now, those two quotes include a shot at neocons and a shot at George W. Bush. Look into the eyes. The second President Bush famously said he'd looked into the eyes of Vladimir Putin, thought he saw a good man. Dick Cheney told me he thought he saw a KGB colonel. Every American president since W has tried to work with Putin, and Putin can't be worked with. An evil guy, just a tyrant. Xi Jinping, maybe we can work with him, probably not. Evil guy, probably just a Leninist killer, don't know. But I do not read that shot at nation building. That's it really at Paul Bremer and a very bad policy following the invasion of Iraq that really lacked a policy. The quick de-Baathification, the disbanding of the Iraqi army, the chaos that ruled in the absence of sufficient military strength, and the lack of a plan for Afghanistan or a plan for an exit. Now, Biden and Obama is in this list of people who got things wrong, too. It's not just W. Everybody gets stuff wrong. So I see this as a return to the Powell doctrine, and I want to read that summary. I don't know if it's Grok or what AI machine is on my phone, but I asked Powell doctrine, set of guiding principles for the U.S. military interventions, was developed by General Colin Powell in the late 1980s, in the early 1990s, the first Bush, late Reagan, early Bush, largely influenced by his experiences during Vietnam War and the Gulf War. It emphasizes using military force only as a last resort, with clear and attainable objectives, overwhelming force, strong public and international support. Key elements of the Powell doctrine include last resort, you don't use it until you have to, clear objectives, got to be well-defined, understood, achievable, overwhelming force, meaning you're going hard and fast, strong support in the international community, an exit strategy, a risk assessment, and intervention should be justified by a vital national security interest. That's all that Donald Trump was saying yesterday. Today, because there was so much consternation in the aftermath of this speech, Trump had to say directly, Israel is not harmed by this trip to the kingdom, to Qatar, and on to UAE. Said, quote, this is very good for Israel. And I agree with him. If you can get the Sunni states together, I think Qatar just does what we and the Israelis ask them to do. Perhaps I'm a little naive about that. But if we ask them to please stop funding Hamas and expel them, they probably would. But we haven't asked them to do that. And the Israelis have used Qatar for years as a cutout for funding Hamas under the very wrong conception that Israel, all of Israel, left, right, and center, labored under, that Hamas could be bought out, that they were evolving, that they could become a useful partner long-term in governing Gaza. Very wrong, 10-7 stripped it off. Now, Donald Trump has not said to Israel one thing about not launching the Gaza offensive that we know about. And said one thing about that. Not one condemnation yesterday. Don Alexander was released. Hours later, the Israeli Air Force bombed the suspected site of Mohammed Sinwar, the last leader left standing in Hamas, hit him with 9 different waves of bombs to make sure he was dead, then dead again and dead a third time. No criticism from us. And if Israel launches the offensive when President Trump returns from UAE to the United States, there will be no criticism. I think Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu are on the same team 100% of the time. And those who are looking, oh, they didn't consult on the Houthi deal. We actually don't know that. And nor should we expect that. That somehow there's daylight, I don't see it. I don't believe it. I don't think what the president told me last week on this show, that Iran can dismantle its nuclear program nicely, or it can be dismantled viciously. I don't think that's changed in a week. But some people want to argue with, they want to find fault with Donald Trump. Now, I don't think that's the case with the commentary crowd. Some of the guys that Dan Senor had on today, Amit and Nadal, they want to find reasons to be alarmed. There isn't any reason to be alarmed. We're not Barack Obama. trying to make Iran into a regional superpower. We're not Team Biden, addled, purposeless, chanting, don't escalate, don't. We're not studying the maps of Rafah. It's all nonsense. Part 2 of this monologue continues after the break. I just wanted you to be assured, if you, like me, are a friend of Israel and you consider Israel the equal of any of our allies on the planet, and they are, the strategic ally, then just chill. It's fine what he's doing. Absolutely fine. Stay tuned. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. This is part 2 of the take on President Trump's thus far very successful trip through the Middle East. I am not a fan of lifting the sanctions on Syria. I'm not a fan of that at all, because we don't know anything about the former bin Laden acolyte, who's now the leader of Damascus. I would hesitate to say the leader of Syria, because Syria is really 4 or 5 different states. But President thinks big. He's throwing up a long ball there, and it's into triple coverage, because there are 3 strikes against this guy's a killer. We'll see how that works out. You can always reimpose sanctions, and I don't doubt he will. But what President Trump said at the Gulf Cooperation Council yesterday late matters a lot. Cut number 7.
As I said in my address last night, the Gulf nations are at the forefront of creating a stable, peaceful, and prosperous Middle East. And I have to say that I've seen such progress. It's really incredible. I've also seen great unity and friendships. I've spent a little time with you just before this, and I've seen tremendous unity, tremendous friendship, and the whole world is watching the Middle East, and many are watching with envy. You have something very special going on. Incredible opportunities are within reach for this region. If we can simply stop the aggression from a small group of pretty bad actors. The Biden administration created havoc and bedlam by basically being incompetent, but by empowering Iran and its proxies, sending them billions and billions of dollars, senselessly. I couldn't believe it to watch. One of the reasons I said, let's do this again. But what they did was so bad, while turning his back on the Gulf allies. Those days are over. Everybody at this table knows where my loyalties lie, always have. They'll never waver, never. And we'll stand with our friends and partners, and we'll confront the aggression that threatens us all.
Now, you know, in that picture, if you're watching on the Salem News Channel, you'll see Secretary of State Rubio, Secretary of Defense Hegseth, Secretary of Treasury Bessent. They're all there at the Gulf Cooperation Council. They're all there. And what Donald Trump is saying is very, very direct. Cut number 8.
I want to make a deal with Iran. I want to do something if it's possible. But for that to happen, it must stop sponsoring terror, halt its bloody proxy wars, and permanently and verifiably cease its pursuit of nuclear weapons. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. I don't imagine there's anybody at this table or anybody in this room that would say they can. I'm strongly urging all nations to join us in fully and totally enforcing the sanctions that I just placed on Iran, and we also placed secondary sanctions, which are in certain ways even more devastating. Iran, as you know, had no money when I left office. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. There was no attack. There was no thought of attack. There would have been no attack if I were president.
So this is consistent with what he told me last week. It's consistent with everything he has said from the beginning. He's very direct. Iran has to dismantle, or we will dismantle it for them, with or without Israel in cooperation with them or other members of the Gulf Arab states. He went on to thank, good diplomacy here, those around the table at the Gulf Cooperation Council. Cut number 9.
In Gaza, my administration shares the hope of so many in this region for future of safety and dignity of the Palestinian people. But that cannot happen as long as Gaza's leaders take delight in raping, torturing, and murdering innocent people. Can't have it. I greatly appreciate the constructive role that the leaders in this room have played in trying to bring the terrible conflict to an end, including by helping secure the release of American hostage Edan Alexander. It was a big day yesterday, a very important day. I was told just before I left that they were going to be releasing Idan. We thought Idan was dead. 3 weeks ago, they said Idan was no longer living. And it was a very, very good thing. Ultimately, all hostages of all nationalities must be released as a stepping stone to peace, and I think it's going to be happening. A lot of things are happening. A lot of very positive.
It's so important to listen closely to this as you did to yesterday, because it said Iran has got to stop the terror. They don't get a nuclear program. Everybody agrees with me. Release all the hostages as a stepping stone to peace. That's a precondition to peace. He's saying it to their faces. He is being very blunt and brusque with them. And he also wants to say thank you, because there's some people in there that have been very helpful to. He reminded everyone about the Abraham Accords, cut number 11.
At the end of my first term, all of the momentum in this region was toward peace. I especially want to thank and congratulate the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain for their vision and courage in signing the historic Abraham Accords. It was something that's a very big thing. I believe we would have had it filled out had the election been called fairly, which it wasn't. It was a rigged election. I hope that in the near future we can continue that progress. We have a mandate from the American people, the likes of which people haven't seen for 129 years. They say it was the most consequential election in America in 129 years. So that sounds like a long time, so we'll take that. But in the future, we'll continue that progress by adding more countries to the Abraham Accords. We have 4, and I think they're going to be filling up very rapidly.
Now, you see, a lot of people are going to get hung up on the rigged election. I think Joe Biden won the election in 2020. The president disagrees. We've had that conversation. I'm not hung up on that. I'm hung up on the next 4 years. And what he's saying is the Abraham Accords were great. Thank you, UAE. Thank you, Bahrain. And to the other signatories, I believe Morocco and Sudan. And he's saying we need more people, and we want more people. That would be Kuwait. That would be Iraq. Most important of all, the kingdom. And he is looking ahead. Cut number 10.
But this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to forge a Lebanon that is prosperous and at peace with its neighbors. And I think things can really happen there.
All right, that's a good sign. That's a good thing. He also said on Air Force One later en route to Qatar that he had a good chat with the killer who's running Syria, cut number 14.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Right. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass. Very strong pass fighter.
Does that worry you?
But he's got a real shot at pulling it together.
All right, so he's giving this guy more credit than I would, and he's going faster than I would, but I'm not Donald Trump. Donald Trump does things differently outside of the conventional approach to everything, and he gets stuff done like the Abraham Accords. So to everyone who's parsing every word, chill out. He did not change his message on Iran. He has not said a word about Israel other than this is very good for Israel. There's no daylight there. Our allies in the region are coming closer together, not further apart. And the Iran choice is still the Iran choice. It's a very good trip. He's doing very good things for America. Chill if you think he's doing something. You're wrong if you think he's separating himself from Israel. He's not. And as he said on this program last week, no better friend to Israel than Donald Trump in the Oval Office. And I believe that. I hope you do too. Coming right back. Don't go anywhere, America. I'm Hugh.